Ready to roll. Thanks, Don. Well, last weekend, Mama Kathy talked a little bit about what happens to our minds when we get lost in fear and hatred. And of course, all the rest of the negative mind states, like greed and jealousy and all that. But with this election coming up Tuesday, which seems to be in the forefront of a lot of people's thinking, and there's a lot of fear and a lot of hatred, it seemed very appropriate. And she asked me if I could just continue with that in my own way. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So I titled this talk, Practice in Tense Times. The subtext for the talk, though, comes from a meme I lifted off of Facebook somewhere earlier this week, which said, next week has been exhausting. That was my favorite of the week. So I have a few general comments to make about that, all of those things. And then I'd like to actually lead just a little meditation practice, a kind of guided meditation. So I'll be talking and just kind of leading you through a practice that if you engage in it, I think in a moment-to-moment kind of way through your day, it can help you deal with the energy. Because really, when you think about it, whether you're happy or sad, whether you're afraid or angry, whatever it is, that's just life energy that because of your own preferences, liking this and not liking that, turns into fear or hatred or turns into happiness and so forth. So the idea of practicing in tense times is to recognize this is all our life. It's not really appropriate to run away from it, and you can't anyway. That's not going to work. And it's fruitless, as we all know by this stage of the game. If you're sitting in this room, I can tell just by how old everybody is, we all know that we can distract ourselves all we want, but at the end of the day, it's not helpful. We still are carrying this energy that's been distorted by this projection we put on them that's based on what we like and what we don't like. So what the Buddha taught was that, life contains these kinds of things. Life has these kind of things. It's true. And since it's unavoidable, how do we work with them? And that was the great gift. That's what Dharma is it's like a tool chest and an instruction manual for how to work with your own mind. Because the faith that Buddha had and that we've been invited to have is that we all have Buddha nature. We all have a nature, and when it's an enlightened nature, it's Buddha nature. So we all have, just because we're alive, we have the potential for this. The issue is just how do we work with this aliveness so that we're experiencing this life with wisdom and kindness and compassion, as opposed to just out of our own wishes for wanting this and not wanting that. Anyway, that's what I'm going to try to accomplish today. I have a few quotes. Usually, for those of you who've seen me give Dharma talks before, I rarely read, my notes. I make notes and then I don't read them. I guess I remember what I need to when I see all you guys, and I trust that. But there are a couple quotes that I wanted to share, so just forewarning, I'm actually going to look down and read some stuff. But before we get to all of that, let's begin with the refuge prayer. It's on these sheets. Oh, and I want to, in case I don't remember at the end, I want to pitch Tuesday night's Chenrezig practice, which is available on Zoom. You can get there from the KTC. That, given just the profound importance of the moment we're in as a country and as a world with this election, and it is profound, there is nothing more powerful, nothing could be better than to spend time doing Chenrezig practice, which is a way of recognizing that you have an ally in this great bodhisattva Chenrezig, or in Sanskrit Avalokiteshvara, and that you yourself, through this practice, come to the place where you recognize those qualities in yourself, where you recognize that you're not who you think you are. You're actually the potential, at least, of the embodiment of kindness and compassion. That's why we do that practice. It's like to remind our minds of who we really are, or what our potential is. So Tuesday nights at 7, and you can get there through the KTC webpage, and the newsletter has links and all that kind of stuff. I encourage you to join us for this practice. If you haven't done it before, I think you'll feel it. And if you have, then you already know, so there you go. But let's start with this refuge prayer. I'd like to chant it twice in Tibetan, and then the third repetition I'd like to just recite together in English. Sanje chudong soki chok nam la, chang chu pardu dak ni kyab suchi, daki jin soki pe sunam ki, drola pinshir sanje drupar sho, sanje chudong soki chok nam la, Changchu pardu dakni kyapsuchi dagi jinso gipe sunki drola pinshir sanje drupar sho. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Thank you. All right. Practice intense times. Here we are. I want to start out with a quote from Alan Wallace. If you haven't run across Alan Wallace, he's a great Dharma teacher. He's a real treasure. He's translated for everybody from, Gyaltro Rinpoche to the Dalai Lama. He's has a PhD in, I think maybe even more than one, but one of them's in Buddhist studies and has started numerous wonderful organizations, including a great retreat center up in Colorado, where people do long-term kinds of practice under guidance and supervision. It's pretty wonderful. Anyway, he said this: do not let the vision be buried by your life, by economics, by politics, and so on. Do not let the vision get lost while you're caught up in what happens on a day-to-day basis. This is the first challenge. The second is, do not let your vision of the middle way, the vision of great perfection, stifle your interest in day-to-day affairs. Your life, your family, the political situation, among others. Do not let vision exclude life situations as if they did not matter, because they do. Keep in mind this expression: stillness in front of movement. So, for most of us, when we come to study Dharma, the first thing that we learn is calm abiding meditation. As my good friend and great translator in his own right, Lama Yeshe Jamso says, there are really only two things that we do in meditation, two forms of meditation. One's calming down, the other's waking up. Turns out you can't wake up until you calm down, which, if you think about it, makes kind of some sense. So one of the first things we do is we learn to practice shamatha, which is simply reminding our minds that we have the power to let go of a thought. We have the power to open up the space so that creative energy and insight can come through. Not energy that's like, what shall I say, distorted by our preferences. It just can be more pure and direct and spontaneous, fun and loving, also powerful when necessary. So the 16th Karmapa, whose picture is right there. I'm looking at him right now, so he's going to channel this for me right now. Great being in this world. So the 16th Karmapa said something about all of this that I thought was also important, because stillness in front of movement. So, okay, how do we do that? Because, any of us who are honest, realize we'll get in the car and on the way home, we're listening to the radio and we'll hear some, report or story or song or whatever we're listening to. And it's gonna not create stillness, but it's gonna cause us to think about stuff all the time. And all those thoughts are obviously gonna come from what we habitually think about, or how we label and judge the stuff that we encounter. So that's where shamatha comes in. And if you're dealing with tense times, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit down and simply let our minds rest on our breath. And when thoughts come up, we let them go in order to just stay with the breath. Just stay with the flow of the breath. Okay. Well, if you're really upset, though, that doesn't work. Got news for you. It's like, you can just sit there and just roll. It's just like being in the middle of whitewater, class 5 rapids or something like that. You're going to have to deal with the boat, otherwise you're going to drown. So our minds can be like that sometimes, and I think from talking to people with the election and the feelings around the election, a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed in that way. And so there are some additional things, we're taught we can use our imaginations to help work with our mind too, which is not letting go of a thought, it's actually introducing a thought. But it's a thought designed to open the doors to the possibilities of our genuine qualities, our Buddha nature, okay? So here's what the 16th says. If you could see and appreciate the truth of the Dharma, and in the light of that appreciation continue to practice, there is no doubt about your being of tremendous benefit to the people you encounter and to this country especially. There would be no doubt about your ability to save beings from countless problems and conflicts. So the practice of the Dharma must be taken very seriously and done very sincerely. If it was up to me, I think the sincerity is really important, so I just want to emphasize that. It plays a crucial part in the shaping of one's life. And not this life alone, but all lifetimes to come. If one is to have temporary as well as ultimate fulfillment of happiness, the incomparable and only reliable connection is the practice of the Dharma. The notion of perception and perceiver has existed from beginningless time, and it is part of the pattern of clinging. From beginningless time, our shortcoming has been to fall back into samsara. In the past, in the future, and in the present, the mind has been in many ways very playful, but where the true nature of the mind is concerned, really it has neither color nor shape nor location, nor can consciousness be pinpointed. What he's saying is, take a look, go find your mind right now. This thing that you think you have, that you think is angry or fearful or happy or sad, go look for it. Can you find it? Does it have a location? This is really actually profound teaching, but one of the things that we can pull out of that is, okay, so what we're experiencing is not a thing. It's not a thing. It's energy, it's action, it's what's happening, right? So then he goes on. He said, the nature of mind goes beyond all such substantialities. Translator used a good word there, it's a big word. This being so, in the meditation practice, it's important neither to invite the future nor recollect the past, but to remain in the state of nowness. The nowness of the mind is the practice which should be developed by you all. And the way that we develop that is first to practice shamatha, to calm down, and then to look directly at or for the nature of mind. And of course, you won't find anything. No matter how unruly and crazy and present it seems to be, when you look, you will see it's this open space like the sky. And yeah, sure, sometimes there are storm clouds there, sometimes there's sunshine there and all that. All that's impermanent, that comes and goes, but the nature of mind just embraces it all. Nothing escapes it. Think about it. Your entire universe however you conceive it to be, since it's a conception, is actually appears within the mind the way a cloud appears within the sky. Mind is open, it's luminous, so it can have any of these things. And does. It all happens. None of us can put our finger in the dike like the little Dutch boy and stop it. It's not going to happen. So my hypothesis, if you will, is that authentic spirituality, authentic Dharma, is revolutionary because it uncovers our sacred truth. It's already there. That which we seek is already there. And when we do practice, we're just working with tools that are designed to help us uncover what's already there, which is our Buddha nature. We have the same nature as Gautama, Shakyamuni, Buddha, same nature. We have the same equipment, human body, same. Literally, he didn't have a special body, you know? He didn't. He didn't have like a Barbie doll body whose feet were permanently like this, even when not wearing high-heeled shoes. No, we have a body same as his. We have the ability to engage our consciousness in such a way that we have language to describe our experience to ourselves and to others. And we have this mind that is open and luminous and can literally entertain everything. So that's kind of a revolutionary thing. Most of us were used to, and I'm talking about myself, you know, we grow up, and when I was a good boy, you know, I got a pat on the head, I got some kind of reward, everybody liked me, you know, whatever. And when I was bad, I got punished, and everything was coming from the outside. Affirmation and punishment all came from somewhere else. The revolutionary part of this is all inside ourselves, and it's all workable. Boy, it's all workable. We get to work with this stuff. So when we're doing Dharma practice, what we're really doing is starting with the view, which Karmapa mentioned. And the view is that we all have Buddha nature. Everything is workable. That's just a view. In order to mine those diamonds and cut them and bring them to their full value, well, that takes some mining equipment, and it takes some skill, and it takes somebody who knows how to cut a diamond and polish it and all that kind of stuff. And that's what practice is all about. So when we're dealing with tense times, one of the most important things to do is to use those times to really dig in and see how we can work with this. I don't know, have any of you worked with wood? Woodworkers? Yeah, a little bit. Some woods are pretty soft. You can literally, with balsa wood, score it with your fingernail or cut it with a butter knife. You get some of these really hard African woods like Paduke, you might need literally a tungsten carbide blade to cut that with a power saw. They're all different kinds. And there's different skill sets. You know, if you want to make something square, you got to learn how to do miters and all that. That's why we have these practices. And what we're doing is we're gaining some tools, we're gaining some skill. Because even though we have Buddha nature and all this wonderful potential, and we aspire to be of benefit through wisdom and kindness and compassion, what I wrote down there was, I don't mean to imply that awakening and enlightenment are purely easy and painless and always, always sweet. Of course they're not. And when they're not, it's a great opportunity. So that's where we are here. Man, when they're not, when you're feeling upset, that's not the time to run away from practice. That's time to run to it and see, okay, let's do shamatha. Let's see what that's like. Okay, let's do Chenrezig practice or mantra practice. I can't tell you for you what it is that'll help you calm down and wake up. All I can do is introduce some tools and some skills for you to work with, and then you got to do all the work on your own. That's the gig, that's the deal. You know, truly, if out of compassion, Buddha wants us all to wake up, wants us all to be happy beyond any taint of any kind of suffering whatsoever, any negative mind state. If Buddha could do that, if just give it to us, he would. He's the soul of compassion, but that's just not the way the thing is. The thing is, we all have to discover it for ourselves. So, ultimately, what does waking up mean? Well, it means actually directly seeing and experiencing the interconnectedness of everything. Even the stuff you hate, even the people you hate, guess what? You're connected. And so what do we do? How do we handle that? Obviously, we don't get disconnected by running away. That doesn't happen, right? I mean, think about it. Can you remember back in high school when somebody really, really broke your heart? Happens, right? Happens to everybody. Can you remember it right now? Yep. Can you remember the feeling of it? Yep. You can't disconnect. You can't run away. Everything is connected. That's enlightenment. Therefore, since everything's connected, we just have to learn to work with it. And that's the whole thing I wanted to work with today is, so how do we cultivate the conditions for our own minds and ultimately the minds of others so that we can recognize our own sacred truth? That's it. It's the object of the exercise. So I'd like to lead. Does this all make sense? Are you up for a meditation? I've had a little cold, so excuse me for this. I'm not contagious, by the way. It's some like bacterial thing, sinus infection, which came because a cold didn't clear up all the way. It's awful. Anyway, you see, but that's something I have to work with. So this is really comes in I think it's 3 parts I want to do. Yeah. So the first part actually comes from One of my teachers, who was a rabbi, he was a great Dharma dude. His name is Zalman Schechter Shalomi. In fact, when Dalai Lama was early in the exile from Tibet, invited him to come to Dharamsala for a period of time to help him learn how he could preserve the Tibetan culture and people in the diaspora, because they were no longer at home. See, it's exactly the same theme. Dalai Lama knew he needed some tools and a method to do this thing that no Dalai Lama before ever had to do. Had to hold things together for the benefit of all these Tibetans. And it turns out, for the benefit of us, we wouldn't be here without the exile. You know that, right? We wouldn't know a darn thing about this kind of form of Buddhism, probably, maybe not about Buddhism at all. So the Chinese, who you might hate for what the torture that they've perpetrated on Tibetans and others in the world, the Uyghurs and the Mongolians and so on and so on and so on, they did us a great favor. It's because of them that we're here right now, today. So it's the way things are. It's the way things are. So Reb Zalman goes to Dharamsala, and because Jews had been living essentially in the diaspora in exile for over 2,000 years by that time, he figured, okay, these people must know how to do this. And they had a wonderful group of meetings. Anyway, I got to know Zalman back in the 90s, and he was truly a remarkable teacher. And he had this one way of meditation that, to me, is a great way to begin practices like Chenrezi, even though it's not in the text. I'm going to tell you right now, this is very helpful. So he said, okay, just sit still and sit quietly, sit up straight. And he said, imagine a line going from your fontanelle right in the front of your head, just above your forehead, where the sutures finally close for babies. And a line going from there to the back of your head, to that bone, right, that occipital bone right at the top of your spinal column that kind of holds your head on your spine. Imagine a line going right through there, right through the middle of your brain. Now imagine another line that goes from one temple to the other. And where those two lines cross, bring all your awareness there. Pull your awareness back from the front of your face. Most of the time, we don't even know how much energy we're putting to the front of our face, but there's a lot, so pull it back. And pull it up from your body. Whatever tension might be in your shoulders or wherever it might be, just bring all of that awareness, bring that to that point. And see how that feels. You feel the energy of that. Now let the energy drop down to your heart. And rest there. And when it calms down, and it will, because that's what our hearts do, they're there to soothe. They're there for love and healing. So when that energy that's come from everywhere calms down, let it rise back up. It's very powerful and warm because it's been touched by love. Now open your eyes and let your awareness project that love out of your eyes. That's the first meditation. Chenrezi means in Tibetan loving eyes. So when we practice Chenrezi, and at the very end, after you've gone through all this stuff, and there's this thing called the dissolution, and you let go of everything. Because everything's connected, it's just the universe is one. And you rest there for a moment. Usually it doesn't last very long. Just a moment. And they say, with the first thought, whatever it is, change the thought to I am Chenrezi. Translating for you, what you're saying is, I am loving eyes. So this first meditation exercise is about calming down and also opening up this potential for profound insight and love within us and allowing that to be our presence in the world, okay? So it's a good way to start. If you don't have enough stability because all the things roiling around in your life, including Tuesday's election and all that, get to be too much. Rather than just working with your breath, you can work with something like this and turn it around so that instead of being hateful or fearful, all of a sudden you've got a direct experience of being able to be loving. That's the antidote for that negative mind state. And once you feel like that, then you can begin to follow your breath. So here's part 2. So just follow your breath all the way in. And all the way out. When a thought comes up, just let it go and return to your breath. And take on the attitude of an explorer. So you bring this breath in, and obviously it comes from the tip of your nose down into your lungs. It moves from your lungs into your bloodstream. This one breath is doing all that. And the life-giving nature of breath literally touches every cell in your body. literally does. That's how we're made. So feel this healing and nourishment that's resident as the quality of every breath. Touch every cell in your body. And as you breathe out, follow it that way too. And become aware of your breath moving out beyond you. And creating nourishment for all the plants in the world, literally. The plants in this area are being fed by you, right down to a cellular level. And in turn, those plants create oxygen, which you breathe in. And stay with that image, because it breaks down this sense of a separate self. We're not at all separate. There are ginkgo trees in Japan that you're keeping alive simply by breathing. And there are baobab trees in Africa that are keeping you alive. Simply through their breathing. And the same goes for plants and animals and everything that appears and exists, that lives. So as you follow your breath for the next couple minutes, feel the nourishment in every cell, the communion. And as you breathe out, offer that communion, that life-giving breath. So that at every moment that you're alive, you're conscious of making offerings to the Buddha nature and everything that lives. And the last contemplation that I want to share is we think of our lives as being a stream or a river, starting small somewhere and finally flowing into the ocean. A lot of people, a lot of cultures have that. And I thought about this a lot a while back. And I thought, when things start out, they don't even have a name. Think of it as being the snow melt in the Appalachians turn into white water up in the mountains. And there are a lot of creeks up there, but they don't have any names. They're just like, it's just a lot of little streams all over the place. And as they flow along, they flow into some creek, and that creek might have a name. And that creek will have qualities, and people will find that it's useful or not useful, and they have all kinds of judgments on this. And it'll flow into a river, and then the river is going to have a name like the Ohio River or the Mississippi River, and there'll be all kinds of labels and names and stuff so it'll have a name, and some people will call the Mississippi Big Muddy, some people will say it's filthy, other people will say it's the best thing in the world because it can get me from the northern border of the United States all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, and that's great, and on and on and on and on. Yeah, and there are those of us who like the blues, and we're grateful for the Mississippi because people traveled up from Memphis to Chicago and brought the music that makes me happy. All of that, you can think about all those things. And then finally, that flows into the Gulf of Mexico and into the ocean. Then what happens? Well, the sun hits that ocean water, and the same water, it's the same water that didn't have a name up on the mountain now, has now got a name like, the Atlantic Ocean, same water. And the sun hits it, and it rises. Water vapor has no particular name. I mean, this bit of water vapor isn't called Mississippi water vapor or something like that. And it becomes a cloud. We can see them, but we don't name our clouds because they appear and disappear and always changing. And eventually some cold air comes along, causes that water to condense, and it comes down at that mountaintop as snow or rain. And it starts all over again as that nameless little creek. Okay? So what I want you to do is just take a minute from this state of being very connected and contemplate how it's all water vapor, and that our labels are conveniences and useful for us, but they don't point at reality. It's not what the reality is. I want you to drop the labels now. And this, of course, applies to political labels and people you like, people you hate, animals that you're afraid of, animals that you love to have as pets, all of that. Just drop the labels and simply relax and enjoy the life energy. This water vapor thing I'm talking about is just a symbol I'm using for life energy, which is everywhere. It's everywhere. This is a way of reminding our minds the way reality is. And then, of course, you'll hear something, see something, feel something, whatever. Somebody will say something to you, and you will have a reaction. You'll have a label, and you'll have a reaction. And all of that will be based on, your karma, your habits, your preferences, your propensities, and all that stuff. But inside of that reaction, there's this life energy no matter what the outside looks like. That's what's there. So this life energy, or mind, in Buddhist terminology is called citta. You've heard of citta? Bodhicitta, which we talk about all the time, just means awakened mind, okay? So, if we can take, say, our anger or our fear that comes up, even though we've done these meditations, since we're not fully enlightened yet, which means we haven't let go of all our propensities and habits and judgments and labels. That's what we're working on, is letting go of those things. Because reality is, we just made those up. So we have a meditation to learn how to free our minds to separate the negative reactions that we're having from the energy. So it goes like this. When you're off the cushion, after you've done meditation like this, and obviously I've taken some time, but you could do this for 5 minutes in the morning and it can set you up for the day, right? You're just reminding your mind that this is how it really is. Good. And then you're going down the street and something happens and you get really angry. So it's like all that kind of good feeling gets blown apart. As soon as you recognize that, see if you can feel it. You might be frustrated with me right now because I'm going too slow or something. Feel that frustration. You can feel it's like a little speediness inside. You feel that when you get angry? I'll go home and Jeannie will say something to me that aggravates me, and we've been married 47 years. It still happens. And I'm very slow. Anyway, I'm trying, though. I'm trying. So as soon as if you're on your game, and I think you have to meditate to do this, I think Karmapa's right about this. You've got to set yourself up for this. As soon as you feel that speediness, because that's a change, when you're kind of happy, everything feels like open and free and flowing. And then, boy, you get tightened up. You contract on one of the negative mind states. It just feels a little speedy and feels a little tight. Okay, that's good. So you take that speediness, and rather than react out of your mouth or with your body or whatever, just mentally drop that whole thing, that speedy energy, that anger, whatever it is, even lower than your heart, down your gut, right behind your navel. So you feel that speediness and you just hold it in your gut. This is what they call gut energy. This is really what it means. And we have this wonderful natural ability to let the heaviness drop. The heaviness being the anger or the reaction of whatever it is. Just let it drop. It's almost like it can fall into the earth, right out of your gut. And then the energy's free. We're just like dropping the husk, the shell of it. And you just let that shell drop down, just like acorn shells after the squirrels have gotten the nut from the inside. So you let that drop down to the ground and allow the energy to rise back up. Just take a moment and see if you can feel that. And you can bring that energy back up into your heart. And touch it with that connectedness that you've experienced. That freedom from not having labels or reactions. And bring it back into your brain as love and energy. You can do this off the cushion all day long. It's like doing Tonglen practice for yourself. You're taking in your negative emotion. You're letting the light in your life completely free the energy from its husk. And you allow that energy to come back up and you offer it through your loving eyes. That's Tonglen for yourself. And then guess what? When you get used to doing that, you can also do that off the cushion through your day with others. You see somebody who's really scaring you or really making you angry. You can take it in a completely different way if you know how to work with the energy. I can't say too much more about this right now because we're running out of time and because it's really an experiential thing. This is something you're going to have to play with. You know, I'm just showing you the tool and giving you a very, this is no better than an IKEA instruction manual, so good luck. I'm sorry I didn't do that better, but, I do my best. So I just want to close with, there's a quote from Chamtrul Rinpoche that I like a lot that's about this. And he says, your miserliness covers your generosity. Your harmfulness covers your discipline. Your intolerance covers your patience. Your laziness covers your perseverance. Your distraction covers your concentration. Your ignorance covers your wisdom. But just how the sun's rays can evaporate a cloud by increasing the energy of your qualities, they can evaporate that which is covering them. So the important thing, I think, in these kind of tense times, don't distract yourself. Don't push it away. Don't engage it with more negativity. Work with these kind of principles and let the husk drop off and bring that energy up, transformed into kindness and compassion and wisdom, and that's what will come out of you. There's that old story of a philosophy professor who goes to his class and he has a full cup of coffee and somebody bumps into him. I've told this story before. And the coffee spills, of course. And he then looks at the class and says, what happened? And they say, well, you spilled your coffee. He said, that's not what happened. Well, somebody bumped into you and the coffee, no, that's not what happened. He said, it could have been tea in there. Or it could have been milk, or it could have been water, or it could have been battery acid. Life is going to bump into you. You're going to spill what's in you. This is going to happen. So make sure that what's in you is something that's not harmful, because that's what's going to come out. So all these meditations, this kind of practice of working with our mind states and the energy that's underneath them are very important just so that we can walk around with cups of things that actually can benefit people, even when life bumps into us in ways that, can cause problems. Because problems are going to happen, right? So anyway, I hope that was useful for you. But it's time. It's 12:30. I don't know. What's that? Well, it was yesterday. We had the fallback, So I'm happy to stay for any questions. I don't know if we can do it with the online thing. Yeah, so if anybody's got any questions or comments, I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And if there are not any questions or comments, I do this to myself all the time. I lead a meditation, everybody gets chilled out, and it's like, wow, no. Nothing there. So let's dedicate the merit of having gotten together and shared the Dharma and shared each other's presence. It's lovely. I'm so glad to see you. We'll just read it through in English. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas, that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you. It's a beautiful day. Enjoy this.